When my father and mother first learned that I was just exploring this, my father is a stroke survivor, and so at the time especially, I would tell them if I was going away for the weekend just so that they knew how to get a hold of me. And so I mentioned at one point that I was going on a retreat. I said, "Oh, what kind of retreat?" "A religious retreat." "What kind of religious retreat?" "A Catholic retreat." Silence, silence, silence. And then my mother says, "If you become a Catholic, I'm going to stop being your mother." And it just sort of went from there. She would say things like, you know, "I don't believe in evil, but the church is evil." And in some ways, this was understandable. My mother comes from a Jewish family, and you know, the church at times, certainly not in her sort of formal dogmatic teachings, but at the individual level, individuals in the church participated in the persecution of Jews. So there's a long and deep and painful history there. My mother also had grown up Jewish in Omaha, Nebraska in the 40s and 50s when anti-Semitism was rife. And then in her own home, her mother, who very much was the dominant person in the family, was a very sort of damaged and negative and wounded person herself. And so that's how my mother experienced faith and religion. And so a lot of very deep wounds there. There were times when I was asked to not come home for Christmas. I mean, this was very, very fraught. It was also an important lesson in communication as well. I thought, okay, you know, there were these things that she and my dad think about the church. If I just sort of explain and explain and explain. Well, of course, this drove them crazy because the last thing they wanted was to hear more about this. They also took it personally, like, you know, "Are you doing this to sort of get at me?" And of course, the answer was no. I'm doing it because, you know, I'm just trying to follow Jesus. It's been very hard over the years, but I think especially when I started seriously dating my now wife, she's had a softening effect on all of us, and she, you know, in the end, they did actually have a lot of questions, but it was just hard for them to ask me as their son who was doing this thing that they thought was sort of deeply, deeply problematic. They were able to ask someone who was not their son these questions. And then I was, of course, able to participate in these discussions. I mean, we're in a very different place now, thanks be to God. But it's a reminder that in the end, grace can work through people even when they deny the existence of grace. And so I am, you know, it's been very hard at times for my father and mother, but I think they have become, they've accepted the reality that I'm a Catholic and I've married a Catholic woman and named our son Benedict. And I think have sort of, they have focused on the fact that, you know, this is their son who we obviously love. We love him, we love his wife, we love our grandson. And have started asking questions. And it sort of shifted away from questions that came from a real place of hurt to genuinely wanting to know. So on the long list of miracles of, you know, how I became a Catholic and why I became a Catholic and what that has meant in a lived sense, I would say near the top of the list has been the real transformation of my relationship with my father and mother in the context of me being a Catholic.